To do it by nationalizing the healthcare industry is not the way to do it. I think first and foremost we have to look at the catastrophic litigation that is involved. I think that if we want to talk about driving down the cost of insurance premiums and rates, we have to break down the state-by-state monopolies that have been created by the insurance commissions. I think one of the key things, knock on wood, I have not been to a doctor since I had my retirement physical back in 2004. So at the end of each year, if I have unused insurance premiums, I should have an option. I should have the option that that rolls over. I should have the option that that money is refunded back to me, or I should have the option that out of benevolence of my heart, I should give that to an American that could use that premium. I think that we need to promote health savings accounts, not tax health savings accounts, which is one of the things that you see in this legislation. And another thing we have to start paying attention to, illegal immigration does affect our healthcare situation here in the United States of America. You look to the south of Miami-Dade, you see Jackson Memorial in trouble. You look to the north of Palm Beach County, you see Martin County Hospital there that is in trouble. So those are the type of, I believe, free enterprise solutions that we need to introduce.
South Florida is keenly aware of the risks and opportunities from the positioning of oil and gas exploration and production off our shores. Do you support further exploration and/or development of oil and gas wells offshore drilling? And if so, or even if not, is there new regulation that's needed to police these activities?
Yeah, and one of the things we got to realize, ladies and gentlemen, energy independence. And when I say energy independence, I'm talking about a full spectrum development of energy resources: oil, natural gas, nuclear, coal, all the way down to the renewables, being the wind and solar, hydrogen, electric. We need to have a 21st century Manhattan type of project, because all you have to do is understand that the terrorist threat that we see that is very prevalent all across this world is because of the fact we are still tied to countries like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. So we must have a new program that promotes our oil and natural gas exploration. We just talked about the unemployment rates. We need to be able to bring some type of industry down here that can get Floridians back working. Now, I will caveat it by saying this. I'm a PADI Master certified scuba diver. And just last weekend, I was out diving on our beautiful, pristine reef systems and also our wrecks. I don't want to see anyone damage those reef systems. So I think that when you have people that are appreciative of what we have in our underwater environment here, but also realizing that China is already in negotiations with Cuba to buy up leases off of Cuba. And with modern day technology called slant drilling, it is very easy for someone to offset an oil rig and come in 45 degrees into our oil and natural gas resources. I believe that every single mass transit and every single truck that we have in the United States of America should be on natural gas. So yes, I do believe in oil and natural gas exploration off of our shores. I believe it must be done environmentally safe, and I believe that we need to have people that have certified oil rigs in some of the most treacherous areas, such as in the North Sea, that come down and certify those rigs, and we need to have a regular inspection program so that we make sure that the fail-safe systems that we saw out on the Deepwater Horizon in the Gulf of Mexico, that never happens again.
Securing Social Security. With the retirement of the baby boomer generation, Social Security outlays are spiking and trust fund revenues are down. The Wall Street Journal reported that 14 million seniors rely on Social Security to keep them out of poverty. If Social Security is not a viable program over the long term, what specific proposals do you have to change it or to replace it?
Well, first and foremost, I know that my opponent, and I know he's not here, God bless him, but he did run ads saying that I'm against Social Security and I want to destroy it. Of course, Miami Herald did a fact check on that, and I have never said that ever. One of the key things is that we made a commitment and a covenant with our seniors, and we need to honor that, because one day I'll be a senior. But I think the most important thing is when we took Social Security out of the independent trust fund account, and we put it into the general operating account, and we allowed the politicians up in Washington, D.C. to raid it for their pork barrel spending and all of the other out of the constitutional mandate type of spending, now we're writing IOUs. The most important thing is we need to get Social Security back in the independent trust fund account first and foremost. And the other thing that we have to do, we got to get Americans back to work. Because if you have Americans that are working, then you don't have that base that is paying into the system so we can continue to grow Social Security. It is a very understandable thing that when taxes are lower, revenues increase. And when revenues increase, that means more money is going to the treasury. And it comes back once again to understand what are those proper mandates and the proper entitlements that we have guaranteed to the American people to make sure that they can have that proper life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, especially in their later years. So I think the most important thing, before we even start talking about what we're going to do with Social Security in out years, we must repair the system first and foremost and get it back to the mandates that it was supposed to be originally as established by Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Question on foreign policy and foreign operations.
Something I kind of had fun with.
We figured you might be at home with this question. Do you support the scheduled drawdown of U.S. forces in Iraq and Afghanistan? And if they represent a high priority national security interest, do you have a plan for specific funding mechanisms to pay for the foreign operations?
Well, I think if you look at the mandates of the Constitution, provide for the common defense is one of the premier things that the federal government is supposed to do. Let me talk to you about my experience. I was a young captain in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And we were told that we had the ceasefire freeze when we were on the tail of 2 Iraqi Republican Guard divisions. Every time this country continues to fight half-measure warfare, you have residual effects. And that has been our mantra since World War II, being in Korea, being in Vietnam, being in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and I don't want to see it happen now because, as I say, I do have a young nephew that's a captain in the military. I think the most important thing that you must do is understand who this Islamic terrorist enemy that we're fighting against. And when you look at our national security strategy, it says nothing about it. Then how do you define the enemy? How do you understand their goals and objectives? You know, when you read the after-action report from that shooting that happened in Fort Hood, Texas, a place where I was stationed, it makes it sound like workplace violence because it talks about nothing that inspired Major Nadal Hassan to gun down 43 of my comrade soldiers and also civilians. The most important thing, you cannot telegraph what you're going to do to this enemy. Because as we're already seeing in Baghdad, we had 2 very large explosions to go off. And deals are already being cut in Afghanistan between tribal leaders and the Taliban because in that culture, they respect strength and might. And when you start to come out with compromise, negotiation, and appeasement, catch and release programs, that conveys weakness. And that is not something they're going to stand by. I think we made a terrible mistake after the fall and the collapse of the Soviet Union that we did not go back and re-examine what the world would look like, make sure we had reshaped the United States military to not so much be an occupation type of military and fight this nation-building war, which I'm totally against. It's about strike operations. It's about finding this enemy sanctuary, striking him in sanctuaries, cutting off his flow of men, material, and financial support. It's about winning the propaganda war, and it's about cordoning him off so he does not have this great sphere of influence that he has.
Next question. I call this helping Main Street or further bailout of Wall Street. Foreclosure is a major problem here in South Florida. Is there a federal role in this matter, or will that role undermine the free market forces at work?
I think when you look at what happened with the market as far as the home market and mortgage crisis, it's all because government got involved. If you go back and you trace this from the time of Jimmy Carter and the Community Reinvestment Act, and all of a sudden government started to lower standards, and government came up and said everyone has a right to own a home. It's a privilege to own a home. And I can tell you, anytime we lower standards, as we said in the United States military, something bad is going to happen. And what happened when we lower standards? You know, it's a great thing for people to own a home, but now all of a sudden you kick the can down the road. You create a Fannie and a Freddie. You have these mortgage-backed securities, bad mortgages linked in with good mortgages. They're sold off to this bank, they're sold off to that bank, they're sold off to foreign banks. And then we have the collapse that we saw in 2008. All because government got involved in a free market enterprise, a free market system called the mortgage industry. That's what I'm talking about, where we've got to get government back in the right mandates. And for government now to come in, and all of a sudden with the TARP legislation, you know, whoever came up with $787 billion, where did that number come from? No one ever said. What was the amount of troubled assets in this bank or that bank? And what we ended up finding out is that the government now nationalized another aspect of our production, and they had the opportunity to choose the winners and the losers. And so now we find out that TARP money, American taxpayer money, has been ended up in foreign banks. So once again, it goes back to understanding what are the right and proper mandates of government. Now, what we have to do, instead of bailing out the banks and bailing out these large financial institutions, we need to understand that the free market is about risk. And when you go into the free market, you as the president, you as the CEO, you need to mitigate that risk. It's not about the American taxpayer coming in and doing it for you. Because there's something in the free market, there's something in America that is called creative destructionism. That's why we're not riding around in horse-drawn